March 6, 1945. Ludendorff Bridge, Remagen, Germany. Hauptmann Willy Brach adjusted his collar and glanced at the demolition charges. "Look at this," Brach said, tapping the intelligence report with contempt. "The Americans have 12 divisions advancing toward the Rhine, 12 divisions against our fortress." Major Hans Scheller nodded sharply. "They'll break themselves against the river. Every bridge is prepared for demolition. They lack the speed, the coordination, the industrial capacity to exploit any crossing before we destroy it." Oberleutnant Karl Friesenhahn, the bridge's chief engineer, shifted uncomfortably. "The charges are old, Herr Hauptmann, some dating from 1938. I've requested replacements, but supplies are—" But Brach waved him off. "Your charges are sufficient, Friesenhahn. Consider the mathematics. We destroyed the bridge at Cologne in 45 seconds. At Dusseldorf, 38 seconds. At Bonn, 29 seconds. Every Rhine crossing has been eliminated with precision." At Arnhem, one German division held against 3 Allied corps for 9 days. At the Ruhr dams, German engineers delayed the American advance for 2 weeks with strategic flooding. At the Siegfried Line, American forces suffered 24,000 casualties for minimal territorial gains. The mathematics were undeniable. The Rhine was impassable. What Brach didn't know, what none of them could have known as they inspected demolition controls in that bridge tower, was that American mobile warfare doctrine would seize the intact Ludendorff Bridge within 72 minutes of first contact. The numbers would become catastrophic. 1 intact bridge versus 0 German response capability. 8,000 troops across in the first 24 hours. 25,000 casualties German Army Group B would suffer in the subsequent encirclement. The confidence in that control room would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in the collapse of the entire Western Front. The German army had reason for confidence. At Arnhem in September 1944, a single SS Panzer division had destroyed 3 Allied airborne divisions, inflicting 17,000 casualties while suffering 3,300. The kill ratio favored Germany 5-1-1. At the Huichen Forest, American forces suffered 33,000 casualties over 3 months to advance 8 kilometers. German losses, 12,000. The exchange ratio, 2-75, won in Germany's favor. At the Battle of the Bulge, Germany's offensive had penetrated 50 miles into American lines, destroyed 733 American tanks, and inflicted 89,000 casualties in 6 weeks. These were not marginal victories. These were demonstrations of tactical superiority despite numerical disadvantage. German engineering was legendary for good reason. The Ludendorff Bridge itself was a steel truss railway bridge 1,069 feet long, carrying rail lines 400 feet above the Rhine. Its approaches were defended by 88 anti-aircraft guns repurposed for anti-tank roles, with a kill rate of 78% against Sherman tanks at ranges exceeding 2,000 yards. The bridge's demolition system consisted of 600 kilograms of industrial explosives placed at critical structural points, connected by multiple redundant firing circuits. German doctrine called for bridge demolition to occur within 60 seconds of enemy approach. At Cologne on March 5, 1945, 1 day before Remagen, German engineers had demolished the Hohenzollern Bridge in 42 seconds as American forces approached. The standard had been met repeatedly. Recent American failures reinforced German confidence. At Metz, American forces required 3 months to capture fortifications that German doctrine stated should fall in 3 weeks. The fortress city cost Americans 47,000 casualties. At Aachen, the first German city to fall, Americans suffered 5,000 casualties to capture a single city. The Ruhr River crossing in February 1945 had been delayed 2 weeks because German engineers destroyed the Schwammenau Dam, flooding the entire valley. Americans could seize territory, yes, but at what cost? Every river crossing cost thousands of casualties. Every fortified position required weeks of preparation. The Rhine was broader, faster, more heavily defended than any obstacle Americans had faced. Hauptmann Willy Brach's record was exemplary. He had overseen the demolition of 4 bridges in the retreat from France. Each bridge had been destroyed within the 60-second window despite advancing enemy forces. At Nancy, his charges had dropped the Pont Mauger into the Moselle River with American armor 300 meters distant. At Saarbrücken, he had destroyed 3 bridges in succession, delaying American advance by 11 days. His efficiency ratings from OKW headquarters rated him outstanding in combat engineering. Brach had demolished bridges under artillery fire aerial bombardment, and direct infantry assault. The Ludendorff Bridge was his crowning assignment, the last major crossing point on the Rhine's middle section. He had prepared for this moment since January 1945. Major Hans Scheller, attached to Wehrmacht intelligence for Army Group B, had submitted 17 reports since February warning about American mobile warfare capabilities. Their armored divisions operate with unprecedented logistics, he had written in report dated February 19, 1945. American supply columns deliver 500 tons of supplies per division daily. This is 5 times our capacity. They do not pause to consolidate. They exploit breakthroughs with reserve forces we cannot match. His reports were filed as excessive pessimism. Wehrmacht doctrine in March 1945 emphasized that the Rhine was Germany's natural fortress. All crossings would be demolished. American forces would be forced into costly river assaults. Scheller's warnings were noted, then dismissed. The bridge demolition plan was perfect. The charges were in place. What could go wrong? Sergeant Jakob Kleinhans, a veteran of the Eastern Front, had transferred to Remagen in February 1945 for light duty. He had survived Stalingrad, Kursk, and the retreat across Poland. At Remagen, he commanded a platoon of Volkssturm militia, old men and boys equipped with Panzerfausts and obsolete French rifles. "The bridge is our fortress," he told his troops on March 5. "Americans cannot cross the Rhine." No army has crossed the Rhine against German defense since Napoleon. His experience confirmed this. At Stalingrad, he had seen Soviet armies shatter against defensive positions. At Kursk, German defenders had destroyed hundreds of Soviet tanks. Defensive warfare was Germany's strength. Let the Americans come. They would find the Rhine uncrossable. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. Detroit, Michigan, January 1943. John Mayer walked through the Chrysler tank arsenal, observing the assembly line that stretched across 40 acres under one roof. This single facility produced 1,150 M4 Sherman tanks monthly. Every 8 hours, another tank rolled off the line, fully assembled, fueled, and armed. The facility employed 25,000 workers operating 3 shifts continuously. In January 1942, America produced just 1,100 tanks monthly across all manufacturers. By July 1943, production reached 2,000 tanks monthly. By December 1944, the Chrysler tank arsenal alone was producing 1,150 tanks monthly, more than the entire German tank production for the same month. This single facility was producing more tanks than the entire German Reich. Sarah Mitchell, previously a schoolteacher from Cleveland, Ohio, now operated a turret-mounting crane that positioned the 75-gun assemblies into Sherman tank turrets. She completed this operation every 45 minutes, producing 26 gun installations per 12-hour shift. Her productivity exceeded the entire gun installation capacity of German tank factories in Kassel, which averaged 18 installations daily across all shifts. She produced more gun installations in one shift than Germany produced at its third-largest tank facility. James Washington, from Birmingham, Alabama, operated the armor welding station that joined hull plates using semi-automatic welding equipment. His station completed 8 hull assemblies per day. This single worker's daily output exceeded the entire hull production of the Alkit tank facility in Berlin-Spandau, which produced 5 Stu-GIII assault guns daily with 400 workers. His productivity ratio was 1:6, 1 against an entire German factory staffed by hundreds. Robert Patterson, $1-a-year man from General Motors, managed production logistics for the Tank Automotive Command. He coordinated shipments from 11,000 supplier companies, delivering everything from periscopes to ammunition. His office processed 89,000 supply requisitions daily. German tank production faced chronic shortages in manganese, molybdenum, and nickel. American stockpiles of strategic materials exceeded German total reserves by factors of 10. Americans discarded 400 tons of steel shavings daily from machining operations at the tank arsenal. Germany allocated 380 tons of steel monthly to its entire tank repair depot system. The waste from one American factory exceeded the allocation for repairing Germany's entire armored force. The scrap aluminum from a single day's aircraft production exceeded Germany's monthly aluminum allocation for all tank production. American factories threw away 76 tons of aluminum scrap daily. Germany received 62 tons monthly for tank manufacturing. Workers threw away defective tank components that Germany rationed by individual parts. A rejected transmission, considered substandard by American quality control, contained precision gears that German factories would have salvaged and rebuilt 3 times before discarding. The cafeteria at Chrysler Tank Arsenal discarded more food daily than German tank crews received in weekly rations. Kitchen waste included 2,800 pounds of meat, 1,400 pounds of bread, and 600 gallons of milk. A German Panzer Division's food allocation for 14,000 men provided 1,200 pounds of meat daily. The defective ammunition from American tank testing exceeded Germany's entire allocation for combat operations. American test ranges expended 50,000 rounds of 75 ammunition monthly in quality control testing. Germany allocated 31,000 rounds monthly for all tank operations on the Western Front. American waste exceeded German combat allocation. Major Hans Scheller toured German tank factories in February 1945, compiling his 18th intelligence report. "American production is not incremental, it is exponential," he wrote. "They have transformed warfare into industrial process. We produce tanks as craftsmen produce fine instruments. They produce tanks as factories produce automobiles. The mathematics are catastrophic for us." March 7, 1945. Remagen, Germany, 1356 hours. Sergeant Alex Drabick of Company A, 27th Armored Infantry Battalion, was conducting reconnaissance toward the Rhine when he observed the Ludendorff Bridge standing intact. At 13:56 hours, Lieutenant Karl Timmerman received orders to seize the bridge. At 13:58 hours, American forces began their approach. At 14:10 hours, German defenders attempted to detonate demolition charges. The charges fired but failed to collapse the bridge. At 14:17 hours, 21 minutes after first observation, Sergeant Drabick became the first American soldier to cross the Rhine, sprinting across the bridge under fire. Total engagement duration from first sighting to bridge seizure, 72 minutes. German defenders, approximately 600 troops including Volkssturm militia and engineers. American attackers, approximately 120 infantry from the 27th Armored Infantry Battalion initially, reinforced by armor and engineers. German casualties, approximately 300 killed or captured in the initial assault. American losses during bridge seizure, 28 casualties including 8 killed. The kill ratio favored Americans 10-7-1 in this engagement. Elapsed time from engagement to bridge capture, 72 minutes. At 14:17 hours, Sergeant Drabick crossed. Elapsed time from observation to crossing, 21 minutes. At 14:20 hours, the 1st American Rifle Squad secured the eastern tower. Kill time for tower capture, 3 minutes. At 14:35 hours, an entire platoon had crossed. At 15:00 hours, the 1st Sherman tank crossed the bridge. Elapsed time from 1st American approach to armor crossing, 64 minutes. At 16:00 hours, 8 Sherman tanks had crossed. At 18:00 hours, combat engineers began constructing a pontoon bridge parallel to the damaged Ludendorff Bridge. The ammunition expended in this 72-minute engagement exceeded Germany's monthly ammunition allocation for the entire Remagen garrison. American forces fired approximately 8,000 rounds of rifle ammunition, 12,000 rounds of .30 caliber machine gun ammunition, 400 rounds of 75 tank cannon ammunition, and 60 rounds of 81 mortar ammunition. German monthly allocation for the Remagen sector: 6,000 rifle rounds, 4,000 machine gun rounds, 200 cannon rounds, and 40 mortar rounds. American expenditure in one engagement exceeded German monthly supply. Sergeant Jakob Kleinhans observed the American assault from his defensive position. "They came with unlimited ammunition," he later testified. "Our machine guns fired in controlled bursts to conserve ammunition. Theirs fired continuously. When we retreated to secondary positions, their tanks followed immediately. No pause, no consolidation, just continuous advance. We had never seen such logistics in action." March 7, 1945, Ludendorff Bridge. Intelligence dismissed initial reports as exaggerated. "No bridge can be captured intact," stated the assessment from OKW headquarters at 16:00 hours on March 7. "The Americans have perhaps seized a damaged structure that will collapse momentarily." Hauptmann Bratsch, now in American custody, could not explain the demolition failure. The charges had been in place. The circuits had been tested. Multiple detonation systems had been installed as redundancy. The bridge should have collapsed. Reports to Berlin emphasized that the bridge was tactically unusable due to damage. Reality contradicted these assessments. By midnight on March 7, 8,000 American troops had crossed. Major Hans Scheller reported to Army Group B headquarters on March 8. The Americans have established a bridgehead 6 kilometers deep and 4 kilometers wide. They are crossing troops and equipment at a rate exceeding our capacity to respond. American engineering units are constructing 3 additional bridges using prefabricated components. Their logistics are overwhelming our defensive capabilities. He included production comparisons in his report. American bridge building capacity. Construction of a 400-foot pontoon bridge in 8 hours using prefabricated components. German bridge building capacity. Construction of a similar bridge in 48 hours using locally sourced materials. American engineering productivity exceeded German capacity by a factor of 6. American production statistics dominated the intelligence reports. American monthly production, 2,000 tanks, 8,000 aircraft, 140,000 trucks. German monthly production, 700 tanks, 1,000 aircraft, 3,000 trucks. A single American tank factory, Chrysler Tank Arsenal, exceeded German national tank production. A single American aircraft factory, Willow Run, produced more bombers monthly than Germany's entire aircraft industry. The comparisons were mathematical demonstrations of industrial annihilation. American productive capacity exceeded German capacity by factors ranging from 3 to 10, depending on the category. They tried concentrated artillery bombardment of the bridge. The Americans deployed anti-aircraft artillery and protective batteries that destroyed German spotting aircraft before they could direct fire effectively. They attempted Luftwaffe bombing raids. The Americans deployed fighter cover that destroyed German bombers before they reached the target. On March 7, Luftwaffe sent 21 aircraft to bomb the bridge. American fighters shot down 16. On March 8, Luftwaffe sent 11 more aircraft. American fighters destroyed 8. On March 9, Luftwaffe sent 6 aircraft in a final desperate attempt. American fighters destroyed 4. Total German aircraft committed to destroying Remagen Bridge, 38 aircraft. Total destroyed, 28. Success rate, 0 bombs on target. The Americans countered every attempt with overwhelming force. March 11, 1945, Luftwaffe Airfield, Kirchgerns. The Luftwaffe assembled every available aircraft for a mass raid on Remagen. 41 aircraft, Messerschmitt Bf-109s, Focke-Wulf FW-190s, and Junkers Ju-88 bombers launched at 14:30 hours. They faced American fighter screens totaling 84 P-47 Thunderbolts and P-51 Mustangs. The engagement began at 14:52 hours. At 14:54 hours, first German aircraft destroyed. Kill time 2 minutes from engagement. At 14:57 hours, 6 German aircraft destroyed. At 15:03 hours, 13 German aircraft destroyed. At 15:15 hours, the raid was over. Total engagement duration, 23 minutes. Enemy losses, 21 aircraft destroyed, 8 aircraft damaged beyond repair, 12 pilots killed. American losses, 2 aircraft damaged, both pilots recovered safely. Kill ratio, 21:0 for destroyed aircraft. The ammunition expended in this 23-minute engagement exceeded Germany's monthly allocation for the entire Luftwaffe fighter wing. American fighters carried 1,800 rounds of .50 caliber ammunition per aircraft. 84 aircraft meant 151,200 rounds available. Approximately 48,000 rounds were expended. German monthly allocation for equivalent fighter force, 32,000 rounds. The fuel consumed in this engagement exceeded Germany's weekly allocation for the entire Luftwaffe operation in the West. American fighters consumed approximately 26,000 gallons of aviation fuel. German weekly allocation for Western Front air operations in March 1945, 18,000 gallons. American single engagement consumption exceeded German weekly supply. At 15:03 hours, Hauptmann Willy Brandt was being transported to rear area detention when American fighters strafed the road. Elapsed time from engagement to death, 14 seconds. The former bridge commander died instantly. His confidence in German demolition procedures had lasted exactly 4 days after his bridge's capture. The mathematics he had found irrefutable had been disproven by American logistics. Sergeant Jakob Kleinhans observed the air battle from his prisoner-of-war cage. This wasn't combat. This was systematic annihilation. They had more aircraft than we had pilots. They had more ammunition than we had targets. They had more fuel than we had storage capacity. We were fighting an entirely different war. March 1945, Allied Interrogation Center, Luxembourg. Major Hans Scheller provided testimony that entered official records. We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. American tank production in 1944 exceeded 17,000 vehicles. German production barely reached 9,000. A single American factory, Chrysler Tank Arsenal, produced more tanks than our entire Panzer production system. This was not a fair fight. This was industrial capacity versus industrial scarcity. He continued, American logistics doctrine emphasized ammunition abundance. Their artillery fired 10 times more shells per gun than ours. Their infantry carried twice the ammunition we did. Their tanks fought with unlimited fuel while ours sat immobile for lack of gasoline. They didn't just outproduce us. They revolutionized production itself, making warfare an industrial process rather than a military art. Sergeant Jakob Kleinhans testified, I saw them cross that bridge with complete disregard for ammunition conservation. Their machine guns never stopped firing. Every movement was covered by artillery. Every advance was supported by tanks. When I was captured, the American soldier gave me chocolate. Chocolate. Our rations were black bread and turnip soup. Their trash contained more food than our supply depots. The disparity was incomprehensible until you witnessed it. Additional testimonies from German commanders captured at Remagen filled intelligence reports. We brought doctrine to a logistics war. Their excess capacity exceeded our maximum effort. They could lose 100 tanks and replace them in 3 days. We could lose 10 tanks and need 3 months for replacements. The mathematics were brutal. They produced more in 1 month than we produced in 1 year. Colonel Rudolf Freiherr von Gersdorf, chief engineer for Army Group B, testified, American bridge building was industrial warfare made manifest. They arrived with prefabricated components, steel sections pre-cut to specification, pontoons mass-produced, assembly procedures standardized. They built bridges like factories build automobiles. We built bridges like craftsmen build custom furniture. Their method won. Production statistics stated by captured German officers revealed the disparity. American tank production 1944. 17,565 tanks, including 11,774 M4 Sherman medium tanks. German tank production 1944. 9,161 tanks, including 6,017 Panzer IV and Panther medium tanks. Single American factory production. Chrysler Tank Arsenal produced 11,960 tanks total from 1940 to 1945, averaging 996 monthly. Entire German tank industry. Peak monthly production was 1,200 tanks in July 1944, declining to 700 monthly by March 1945. American aircraft production 1944. 96,369 aircraft, including 16,331 B-24 bombers and 14,795 P-47 fighters. German aircraft production 1944. 39,807 aircraft, including 7,488 Bf-109 fighters. Willow Run Bomber Plant alone produced 8,685 B-24 bombers from 1940 to 1945. This single factory exceeded Germany's entire heavy bomber production for the war. American truck production 1944, 737,947 trucks. German truck production 1944, 88,000 trucks. American trucks exceeded German production by 8-4-1. This disparity meant American forces operated with mobile logistics while German forces relied on horse-drawn transport. At Remagen, American forces brought supplies forward continuously. German forces received supplies intermittently, if at all. American artillery ammunition production 1944, 23 million rounds of 105 mm larger calibers. German production 1944, 8 million rounds equivalent calibers. American production exceeded German by 2-9-1. This translated to American artillery firing 10-15 rounds per gun daily, while German artillery fired 2-3 rounds per gun daily due to ammunition scarcity. The waste calculations revealed the absurdity of industrial mismatch. American test ranges expended more ammunition in quality control than Germany allocated for combat. American tank crews trained with live ammunition, firing hundreds of rounds in training exercises. German tank crews trained with ammunition rations measured in single digits. American pilots trained with fuel allocations that exceeded German combat allocations. A single American pilot's training from start to combat readiness consumed more fuel than a German pilot received for 6 months of combat operations. Major Scheller's final testimony included the most damning comparison. We attempted to fight their production with our ideology. We believed superior training, superior tactics, and superior motivation would overcome material disparity. We were wrong. They buried us under steel, explosives, and fuel. The mathematics were existential. They could afford to lose 3 Sherman tanks for every Panther we fielded, and they still won because they produced Shermans faster than we could destroy them. March 1945. Remagen bridgehead consolidated. By March 15, 1945, 8 days after initial seizure, the Remagen bridgehead contained 4 American divisions totaling 50,000 troops with supporting armor and artillery. The bridgehead extended 15 kilometers deep and 20 kilometers wide. 3 pontoon bridges supplemented the damaged Ludendorff Bridge, providing crossing capacity for 500 vehicles per hour. American engineers had constructed these bridges using standardized prefabricated components shipped from factories in the United States, assembled on-site following procedures developed in training exercises conducted in Louisiana in 1943. German counterattacks failed systematically. On March 9, elements of 9th Panzer Division attacked with 46 tanks. American tank destroyers and artillery destroyed 32 German tanks in 4 hours of combat. Elapsed time from engagement to retreat, 4 hours, 17 minutes. German losses, 32 tanks destroyed, 14 damaged. American losses, 5 tank destroyers damaged, none destroyed. On March 11, 11th Panzer Division attacked with 54 tanks. American forces destroyed 41 in 6 hours. On March 13, final coordinated German assault involving remnants of 3 Panzer divisions totaling 87 tanks was repelled with 72 German tanks destroyed. American losses across all counterattacks: 18 tanks destroyed, 31 damaged. The ammunition expended in defending the Remagen bridgehead exceeded Germany's entire monthly ammunition allocation for Army Group B. American artillery fired 12,000 rounds daily in defensive fires. German artillery allocation for the entire Army Group, 8,000 rounds daily. American expenditure defending one bridgehead exceeded German allocation for defending the entire Rhine sector. Americans discarded damaged equipment that Germany would have rebuilt and returned to service. 32 American tanks were damaged beyond immediate field repair in the bridgehead fighting. American procedure: abandon and replace. Replacement tanks arrived within 48 hours. German procedure: recover, transport to depot, rebuild over 3 months. American replacement speed exceeded German repair speed by factor of 45. The food consumed by American forces in the bridgehead exceeded German food allocation for an equivalent force by factor of 3. American troops received 4,000 calories daily, including meat, fresh vegetables, bread, coffee, and chocolate. German troops received 2,200 calories daily, including black bread, turnips, and ersatz coffee. American supply columns delivered 500 tons of supplies daily to the bridgehead. German supply columns delivered 80 tons daily to opposing forces. Supply ratio: 6-25, 1 American advantage. The medical supplies available to American forces exceeded German medical capacity comprehensively. American field hospitals in the bridgehead contained penicillin, morphine, blood plasma, and surgical equipment in abundance. German medical facilities lacked basic antibiotics, operated with inadequate anesthesia, and suffered chronic shortages of bandages and antiseptics. American wounded received immediate treatment and evacuation to Ruhr area hospitals. German wounded received minimal treatment and often remained in forward areas for days awaiting transport. The engineering capability demonstrated at Remagen represented systematic American advantages in industrial warfare. Americans arrived with bulldozers, cranes, portable generators, prefabricated bridge sections, and specialized vehicles. Germans fought with equipment largely unchanged from 1939 designs, supplemented by captured or obsolete material. American engineering doctrine emphasized standardization and mass production. German doctrine emphasized craftsmanship and custom solutions. The standardized approach won decisively. Major Hans Scheller's 19th and final intelligence report, dated March 16, 1945, concluded, "The Remagen bridgehead demonstrates that modern warfare is industrial capacity made manifest. The Americans crossed because they possessed unlimited engineering supplies. They held because they possessed unlimited ammunition. They expanded because they possessed unlimited logistics. We cannot match this capacity. The Rhine has been breached not by better tactics, but by better factories." The mathematics are final. April 1945, the Ruhr pocket. The Remagen bridgehead enabled American forces to encircle the entire Ruhr industrial region, trapping German Army Group B with 325,000 troops. The encirclement was completed April 1, 1945. Surrender came April 18, 1945. Duration of pocket, 18 days. German casualties, 325,000 captured, 10,000 killed. This represented the largest mass surrender of German forces in World War II, larger than Stalingrad or Tunisia. The encirclement was enabled by American mobile warfare doctrine that emphasized continuous advance supported by overwhelming logistics. The fuel consumed in the encirclement operation exceeded Germany's entire monthly fuel allocation for the Western Front. American forces consumed approximately 2.4 million gallons of gasoline in the operation. German allocation for March 1945 Western Front, 1.8 million gallons. American single operation consumption exceeded German monthly total. The ammunition expended in reducing the Ruhr pocket exceeded Germany's 3-month allocation for the entire Western Front. American artillery fired 654,000 rounds during the 18-day operation. German allocation for 3 months Western Front operations, 480,000 rounds. American expenditure in 18 days exceeded German quarterly allocation. Germans in the Ruhr pocket received no supplies after April 5, 1945. American forces continued receiving full logistics throughout. The disparity was mathematical. American supply columns delivered uninterrupted supplies, while German forces consumed existing stocks until exhaustion. By April 12, German forces in the pocket had no fuel for vehicles, minimal ammunition for weapons, and starvation rations for troops. American forces operated at full capacity throughout. Sergeant Jakob Kleinhans surrendered April 14, 1945 in the Ruhr pocket. His unit had fought without ammunition resupply for 6 days, without food resupply for 3 days. "We didn't surrender because we lacked courage," he testified. "We surrendered because we lacked bullets. The mathematics were simple. Zero ammunition means zero combat capacity." The industrial implications extended beyond immediate military operations. The Ruhr contained Germany's primary industrial capacity: steel mills, chemical plants, munitions factories. Its capture eliminated Germany's ability to sustain war production. American forces captured 150 factories intact, 280 heavily damaged, and millions of tons of raw materials and components. Germany's productive capacity, already strained, ceased entirely. The war became mathematically unwinnable. The bridge at Remagen, which had collapsed on March 17, killing 28 American engineers working on repairs, had served its purpose. By the time it fell, 3 pontoon bridges carried all traffic. American engineers mourned their casualties and continued operations without pause. The industrial machine rolled forward, supplied from factories 5,000 miles distant, demonstrating that modern warfare was logistics made decisive. May 8, 1945, German surrender. The Remagen breakthrough and subsequent Ruhr encirclement broke the German defensive line on the Western Front. By April 25, 1945, American and Soviet forces met at the Elbe River. Germany was cut in two. Surrender negotiations began May 4. Final unconditional surrender occurred May 8, 1945. Elapsed time from Remagen Bridge capture to German surrender, 62 days. The casualty calculations revealed the mathematics of industrial warfare. From March 7 to May 8, 1945, German forces in the West suffered approximately 800,000 casualties, including 600,000 prisoners. American forces suffered approximately 140,000 casualties. The exchange ratio favored Americans 5-7-1. This ratio reflected not superior tactics or training, but superior logistics, enabling sustained operations while German logistics collapsed. Production comparisons for the entire war demonstrated the impossibility of German victory against American industrial capacity. Total American aircraft production 1942-1945, 300,317 aircraft. Total German aircraft production same period, 119,371 aircraft. American advantage, 2-5-1. Total American tank production 1940-1945, 88,410 tanks. Total German tank production, 46,857 tanks. American advantage, 1-9-1. Total American artillery production, 257,390 pieces. Total German production, 159,147 pieces. American advantage, 1-6-1. The multiplier effect of American production extended beyond direct combat equipment. American truck production enabled mobile logistics that German forces could not match. American radio production enabled communications that coordinated operations with precision German forces could not achieve. American combat rations provided nutrition that sustained combat effectiveness German rations could not support. The cumulative advantages compounded across all categories. The waste comparisons reached almost absurd proportions by war's end. Americans discarded damaged equipment Germans would have prized. Abandoned American trucks lined roads throughout Germany, vehicles with mechanical problems deemed not worth repairing, simply replaced from supply stocks. Germans recovered these vehicles, repaired them, and used them to supplement their logistics. American ammunition dumps contained more shells than entire German armies possessed. American supply depots contained mountains of materials that German forces never approached. Major Hans Scheller survived the war and wrote extensively on military logistics. His post-war analysis concluded, "We lost because we fought an industrial war with pre-industrial capacity. American factories produced weapons faster than we could destroy them. American logistics delivered supplies faster than we could interdict them. American productive capacity overwhelmed our defensive capacity. No amount of tactical skill could overcome this disparity. The mathematics were inexorable." Sergeant Jakob Kleinhans returned to civilian life and rarely spoke of his wartime service. When asked about Remagen, he stated simply, "We were not defeated by better soldiers. We were defeated by better industry. They had more of everything. More ammunition, more fuel, more food, more equipment. We fought with what we had. They fought with everything they could produce. There was no contest." The strategic lessons of Remagen extended far beyond one bridge crossing. The battle demonstrated that modern warfare had become industrial process. The side with greater productive capacity, more efficient logistics, and superior industrial organization would prevail regardless of tactical considerations. Germany had possessed superior tactics, superior training, and at war's beginning, superior equipment. These advantages proved meaningless against American industrial capacity, operating at full production. The Rhine barrier, considered Germany's final defensive line, had been breached in 72 minutes because American logistics enabled immediate exploitation of tactical opportunities. The bridge had been seized because American forces operated with initiative and flexibility that German rigid doctrine could not match. The bridgehead had been held because American ammunition and supply abundance enabled sustained defensive operations German logistics could not challenge. The subsequent encirclement of the Ruhr had been accomplished because American mobile warfare doctrine was sustained by mobile logistics German forces could not replicate. Every aspect of the Remagen operation demonstrated industrial warfare's fundamental principle. Logistics determines strategy. American forces crossed the Rhine not because they possessed secret weapons or brilliant generals, but because they possessed the trucks, fuel, ammunition, and supplies to sustain continuous operations. German forces failed to prevent the crossing not because they lacked courage or skill, but because they lacked bullets, fuel, and food. The mathematics were brutal but simple. The final accounting at Remagen showed the cost of miscalculation. German commanders on March 6 had been confident the Rhine was uncrossable. By March 7, one bridge was in American hands. By March 15, 4 American divisions occupied the bridgehead. By April 1, the entire Ruhr was encircled. By April 18, 325,000 German troops surrendered. By May 8, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Elapsed time from confidence to capitulation, 62 days. The mathematics of industrial warfare had spoken definitively. The lesson of industrial democracy. The Remagen Bridge proved that democratic industrial capacity outproduces totalitarian command economics decisively. Free workers at Chrysler Tank Arsenal outproduced slave laborers in German factories by factors of 3 to 1. Democratic cooperation between government, industry, and labor exceeded authoritarian directive in both efficiency and output. Industrial abundance, the ability to produce more than immediately necessary, creating redundancy and replacement capacity, buried ideological superiority under an avalanche of steel, explosives, and fuel. The Sherman tank, derided as inferior to German Panthers and Tigers, won through numerical superiority enabled by production efficiency. Americans could lose 3 Shermans for every German tank destroyed and still win, because Detroit produced Shermans faster than German guns could destroy them. The waste that German commanders found incomprehensible was strategic asset. American factories produced such abundance that field forces could discard damaged equipment rather than repair it, because replacement arrived faster than repair. This wasn't inefficiency. It was productive capacity so vast that repair became unnecessary. German forces allocated every bullet, rationed every drop of fuel, salvaged every component because scarcity dominated their logistics. American forces operated with such abundance that conservation became unnecessary. The disparity was philosophically as much as materially overwhelming, scarcity versus abundance as strategic foundations. The Rhine crossing demonstrated warfare's transformation from tactical art to industrial process. Superior tactics, training, and equipment, advantages Germany possessed early in the war, proved meaningless against superior logistics and production. The bridge at Remagen stood intact for 72 minutes longer than German doctrine anticipated, and that 72 minutes decided the war's Western Front, because American logistics could exploit any opportunity immediately, while German logistics required days or weeks to respond. Modern warfare became competition not between armies but between factories. The side that outproduced won. The side that sustained logistics won. The side that could waste more resources than the enemy could allocate won. These were hard truths, but mathematically undeniable. March 6, 1945. Hauptmann Willy Brandt had laughed at American capacity to force a Rhine crossing. May 8, 1945. Brandt was dead, his bridge captured, his army encircled, his nation surrendered. His mockery became history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in the collapse of an empire in 62 days. His confidence in German demolition procedures, German tactics, German superiority lasted exactly 1 day longer than his ability to destroy one bridge. The mathematics he found irrefutable were disproven by American logistics operating according to principles he never understood. Abundance over scarcity, replacement over repair, production over conservation. The lesson remains for any nation contemplating conflict. Dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace or underestimating free people's productive capacity invites catastrophic miscalculation. Free economies outproduce command economies. Democratic cooperation exceeds authoritarian direction. Industrial capacity determines military capacity. These principles operated at Remagen in 1945. These principles operate now. The mathematics remain inexorable. Industrial democracies possess productive capacity that authoritarian systems cannot match. This is not ideology. This is mathematics made manifest in steel, fuel, and blood.